I have no issue with Miami getting the nod over Notre Dame. My issue is Alabama.
I knew it.
Over Notre Dame. Alabama, in last week's rankings, inexplicably jumped Notre Dame. Like, that's where this starts. I have a big problem with it being, and we watched that performance and thought, yep, that's a better team than Notre Dame.
With that.
Let's start off with our wheel route here from the Ohio Sinus Institute. And I mean, there's not really any other place for us to start but the college football playoff rankings.
Just got announced yesterday. Initial gut reaction, I already knew your thoughts, and I texted you this because the second this name got brought up, I knew that you immediately hated everything else that was said afterwards. But this is where we disagree. I think we'll agree on one part of it, but not the entire thing.
I think you're correct. So obviously the question was the way that things fell on Saturday essentially left two spots available for two of the three of Alabama, Miami, and Notre Dame. And there was the big question for a lot of people was Miami or Notre Dame. The consensus from at least the wider world of college football was, well, one of these teams is getting in, Alabama's safe, and how do you parse through head to head, but also how does Notre Dame, stay at 10 and Miami starts at 18 and they jump all the way through, and I think we're kind of asking the wrong question, if I'm being honest with you.
Okay.
I have no problem with Miami getting in over Notre Dame. Why? Because of head-to-head. Now, the head-to-head can't always win out, right? Mm-hmm. There's, are we going to put, you could walk down the line, right? If Georgia, I don't even have a good example, so I'm not going to try to. Head-to-head can't always win out, but if you had this head-to-head game, and I believe it was opening weekend. You have this head-to-head game, and the trajectories of these two teams stay about the same, right? It's not like Miami completely fell off a cliff and lost 4 games, and now we're comparing head-to-head and anything like that. These two teams stayed about the same. Their strength of record's about the same. Their FPI is about the same. Like, all that stuff is about the same. So all other things are, in fact, pretty equal. The head-to-head's got to win out. Because if Miami Notre Dame had been played in early November instead of early September, that wouldn't have even been a discussion. So the games count the same in September, or they're supposed to. They count the same in September as they do in November. I have no issue with Miami getting the nod over Notre Dame. Here's where we're going to probably break stride. My issue is Alabama.
I knew it.
Over Notre Dame. Do you want to like before I jump into there's a little teaser for you. Would you agree on the Miami Notre Dame portion of that? Because I actually don't know if you agree with that or not.
Half. I think my biggest point with the whole entire bracket itself, and I said this last year, I would still stand on this hill, is I ultimately want the best 12 teams. And I think this year, more so than last year, proves my point even further, because you have these final 2 teams that get in, and I'm looking at them going, I don't want to watch that game.
You don't think James Madison has a shot in Outson?
I'm looking at James Madison, who's 20.5-point underdogs. I'm looking at Tulane, who's 17.5-point underdogs, going, who wants to watch that?
I mean, we do, because college football.
No, I'm not. I will want to watch it until about the first quarter when it's already 14-0 and it's very clear that one team is outmatched. Yeah. So at the end of the day, and I know people are going to go, well, how do you've got to figure out a way to reward those teams because they had a heck of a season. So you can't just punish them by not including them and stuff like that. But nobody in their right mind is going to sit there and tell you that Tulane or JMU is better than a 3-loss Alabama team. And so while I agree with you in the sense of they should not have been the number 9 seed, they still were one of the top 12 teams in my mind in the country. So them being a part of it, I'm fine with. I think you should have had a Notre Dame take the place of a Tulane or a JMU.
So your issue is more the structure of having automatic G5 bids.
Yeah, to me, you saw it last year.
Because you hate the little guy.
Well,
I just want to make that.
Here's
all
the realistic.
3 Tulane fans that subscribe to this podcast are very upset right now.
Come at me, bro.
those kids could read. They'd be very upset.
I think my wife calls their team the Christmas trees, and she was trying to explain it to me this weekend. She thinks the green the logo looks like a Christmas tree to her. And
I can kind of see it.
So when she was trying to talk college football with me this weekend, she kept saying, "Did the Christmas trees get in?" And I was like, "Stanford? No,
they didn't.
No, they didn't." And then it hit me. She was talking about Tulane.
Amazing.
But I think you saw that last year. You might, and it's gonna happen because that's just the way the world works. You're gonna have a season where a JMU or a Tulane upsets the first round.
At some point,
inevitably,
sure.
It's gonna happen. But the chances of one of those teams ever actually pulling it off, getting all the way, being competitive the whole entire way through, I just don't see it happening.
But I think you have to, I do think for the good of, and I think you could restructure, is it the 5 highest ranked conference? Like you could restructure how that works. I do think you need a G5 automatic qualifier in some way for these mid-major programs to be able to, like, for it to work. Like, I think it dramatically hurts college football if you don't have, an opportunity for a James Madison or a Tulane or Hawaii in their 12-0 season, right? To not have that opportunity to get into a playoff. You don't have to have more than one spot. It just kind of happened to work out that way because the ACC is garbage.
But I think and I get that, but I just think looking at the first slate of games, when 2 of those 4 games are by 17 and a half or more points, would I rather watch a team like that, or would I rather see a Notre Dame go in there against an Ole Miss?
Well, there's no question about would Notre Dame. I mean, obviously, I'm arguing for Notre Dame, and as a Michigan fan, I hate everything about that. But there's no question Notre Dame Ole Miss would have been a better game. But it's the playoffs. If it's, I think this is dangerous because if it gets into, well, what's the better matchup for TV ratings, then Michigan may as well be in there. Well, Texas may as well be in there.
And I would argue both of those would be better choices.
And then we may as well, for the next 20 years, go ahead and set the playoff field now of the biggest brand names and just let them battle it out every year regardless.
I don't even think that's the issue. I think the issue, and this is where I think you and I kind of agree on this, 12 teams is just too many.
Well, correct. Yes.
To me,
there are not 12 teams that need to be in the playoff. Sure.
10 would probably be my max.
I mean, I'm still a bit of a stickler on 4. I could go to 8. See, 8 is my max.
8 would be my max. 8 would be fine. Yeah. 10 I think is my max because I would be fine if you look at the top 10 for this bracket. I'm comfortable with all of those.
But at the same time, then you are still going to end up with, and I don't remember if it was Josh Pate or whoever was talking about this, but if you do that, you're going to have the same arguments from, okay, so the top 10 get in. 11 through 14 are going to make the same complaint. We had this when Florida State missed out on the playoff to Alabama in the 4 team. You expand this sucker to 24. Well, then we're going to be talking about, well, Duke is the best 5-loss team in the country and should get a chance to.
Well, that guy was outrageous.
Like there's eventually.
Manny Diaz was outrageous.
So I mean, I do agree. We at least can agree on there's too many teams in.
Yeah.
I want to circle back though at this point. So I think we both agree that Miami over Notre Dame is the right choice.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Notre Dame fans are going to be upset about it, whatever.
You should win the game.
Yeah.
Here's where I'm going to go to bat for Notre Dame. I'm going to hold my nose while I do it. My gripe is not Miami. My gripe is Alabama. And here's why. I've got many problems with you people, and you're going to hear about it. Alabama, in last week's rankings, inexplicably jumped Notre Dame. That's where this starts. Where Notre Dame had beaten Stanford by 107 points. Alabama scuffled their way past Auburn, a not very good Auburn team, by the way.
No, but it was a rivalry game. I mean, next to Michigan, though. I mean,
fine, but you're telling me that Alabama should have jumped Notre Dame for that performance?
No, I'm more so making a comment on you kind of downplaying that they were in a close game and a rivalry game because we've talked all season long.
I don't have any problem with
throwing those out the window because it's always going to be contested.
I don't have any problem with it being a close rivalry game. I have a big problem with it being, and we watched that performance and thought, yep, that's a better team than Notre Dame.
I would agree with that.
For me, that's where this problem starts. That was inexplicable in last week's rankings, and now Alabama goes into the championship game and gets the hinges blown off by Georgia. The argument that I've heard, and I understand it to an extent, is, well, you can't be punished for playing an extra data point. You can't be punished for playing in a game that other teams didn't qualify for or don't have a conference to join. You can't be punished for that. And I would say, sure, unless you get the hinges blown off you. Mm-hmm. Because if we're going to make the argument that in no situation can you be punished for playing in a championship game, BYU would like a word. BYU's not going to the playoff.
And they shouldn't.
And they shouldn't. You know why? Because BYU has 2 losses. The second one was in a conference championship game, and they got the hinges blown off them. So if we're going to say, well, Alabama can't drop because it was an extra game. So you're telling me if BYU hadn't qualified, BYU'd be in the playoff then? I don't buy that for a second. So if we're going to do this, and this is the real problem with the committee, is consistency. There's no consistency here. If the argument is you can't be punished if you're blown out, then BYU should be in the playoff. That's obviously not going to happen.
And I'd have been fine with BYU over Tulane or JMU.
And that's a. I mean, would it be a better game? Yes, but that goes back to the whole other discussion. Like, here's my thing: if you're Alabama and you want to prove that you are playoff worthy, you got your opportunity, and you lost, and not just lost. Like, you looked terrible. Alabama rushed for -3 yards. You and I had more statistical stats are stats.
Stats are stats. We've often said.
Everyone watching this podcast or listening to this podcast had more rushing yards than playoff Alabama on Saturday.
Unless you happen to be an Alabama football player watching this, and which in fact you did not have as many rushing yards as us.
And let's not forget, Alabama also had a home field loss to another playoff team in Oklahoma already.
That's their first round matchup.
And on top of that, let's not forget, because apparently week 1 games matter, which yes, they should, got manhandled by an awful Florida State team. Mm-hmm. So from the inexplicable jump over Notre Dame to the lack of consistency about what can happen in a conference championship game, like it boggles my mind. And if I'm Notre Dame, I think you're mad at the wrong team. If you're mad at Miami, you're mad at the wrong team. Mm-hmm. If you're mad at the committee, that's, I mean, obviously like correct. It makes no sense. And I'm frustrated with it because, again, I don't even know if I have a good solution for, well, how should you handle conference championship games? Most of the time I would say, again, you should not be punished for playing that extra game. But it begs the question, how many points did Alabama need to lose by to be punished in that game? If they got blown out 56-0, is that enough? Like, where's the line there? And the problem is, and this has been well-versed from national media folks, which obviously we're not, but if the national media folks have even picked up on this too and said, this doesn't feel like the committee follows their own criteria. And that has been the case forever. I don't like the advocacy to go back to the BCS model or anything like that. But there has got to be, and you know, I reference Klatt a lot because Klatt is one of the guys that I respect a lot here. Disagreed with him on his podcast this week because he was like, no, this is everything's fine. I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
But he had mentioned you need to rank the criteria so that we can understand what holds the most weight here, because it's just kind of And that's the big problem, is the inconsistency. I do not feel bad for any 3-loss team getting left out of the college football playoff. Alabama does not deserve to be in that field.
I think it's a different question from whether they deserve to or should they. Because, I would still stand on the hill that they are one of the 12 best teams in the nation. I know that's not how it's set up. They can't run the
football.
And they're still one of the best. They had one of the toughest schedules in the nation. The Georgia team that they just got blown out by, they beat earlier in the year. I mean, they've got the talent. I've said it numerous times, and maybe this is just me dying on the hill that I still think that they're a really, really good team. But the playoffs to me should be a thing where I'm looking at the game slates for the weekend and every single one feels like a home run, even the very first opening weekend. And when I see 2 teams that are 17.5 or more underdogs, I'm going to watch it because I'm a college football geek, but I'm not going to be happy about it when it becomes a boring game and it's 28-7 or whatever, like what we saw Texas Tech versus BYU and those kind of games where it's not this highly contested thing and there's a clear talent gap. I get that it's rewarding to those teams that have these phenomenal seasons, but what does it really do? Does it really enhance the game when you're trying, to me, that's the stage where you should be showcasing the best talent in your sport. And JMU, and I would be fine. I could probably even make the argument for a team outside of Alabama to be included in that. I'm not even going to sit there and absolutely die on the hill that Alabama should be in there.
You're more focused on the G5 taking spots that you don't think they deserve from the structural standpoint, more so than what I'm ticked off about in Alabama.
And I think I'm looking at this going, okay, I could see a Vanderbilt going in over in Alabama. I could see Vanderbilt going in over JMU and Tulane. I can see Notre Dame going in over any of those teams. I could probably make a case for another team that could have taken Alabama out of that slot. I would be fine with that. My biggest gripe with the rankings yesterday, and I don't know if there really is a fix to it, is literally those G5 teams. I said it all last season when you had SMU going and playing on the road at Penn State.
Well, SMU is a Power 5 team or a Power 4 team.
Well, but every single person knew that SMU was going to get blown
You're talking
out.
about. I got you.
Some of those lower seeds that get in there where I'm looking at this going, I don't.
Are there and this is the area that we, again, to come back to it, that we do actually agree on, which is 12 teams is too many.
Oh, 100%.
You don't need 12 teams to be in that playoff.
Boise was one last year where they got the first round bye, and I went, really? I understand what they did. I understood what JT was as a player. I don't think a single person outside of Boise, Idaho thought they had a chance in that game, and it showed. And so that was my biggest gripe yesterday walking out of that is there's clearly a flaw in the system. We differ a little bit on what that flaw is. To me, I just want the 12 best teams. I want to sit down that first weekend of college football and be excited for stacked games. And the first weekend, it's 50% to me.
And I think that from a watchability standpoint is fair. Yeah, I just think we're not looking at watchability necessarily. And again, I'll finish just by saying, like, if Alabama were called any other name, they wouldn't have got in. If what happened, again, if Alabama were BYU,
look at a team like Vandy.
If the Alabama logo were replaced by BYU's logo, right? To use the analogy from, like, hey, when trying to respect Indiana, which we'll get to here in a second. If Alabama were named BYU, they wouldn't have made the field. And you know how I know that? Because BYU got blown out in a championship game and didn't make the field with more wins than Alabama has.
Can we touch very briefly? This is straying away from the college football playoffs, but it was because of the rankings that this started to kind of trickle down of these teams opting out of bowl games. I forget who the very first one, Kansas State, I think, was the very first one that as a team decided they wanted to opt out. Thank you. I didn't want to watch Avery Johnson throw another pass anyways. That one I ain't mad at.
I think Iowa State did too, right?
Yeah, Rutgers did.
Remember when in Ireland that was like a premier matchup? Iowa State, Kansas State. No, both of them were like, horrible. We don't want to do this.
But then immediately after the rankings came out, the 12 teams were announced. Notre Dame came out with a statement basically saying we will not be playing in a bowl game. We want to remove our name from consideration.
Because they were going to play in the Pop-Tart Bowl against BYU.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on just that as a whole? Not just Notre Dame specific, but just the way college football is, because you and I growing up, bowl games still meant something. And we've talked about this, I think, last season as well. What are your thoughts on teams actually choosing to opt out of bowl games now?
I think it's ridiculous.
Good. I'm glad we're saying here.
What's weird is that, like, I feel different when we're talking about individual players.
For sure.
Than I do about teams. I don't understand. And if this sounds like, hey, I've heard this, but because I think this is the general consensus. I don't understand how you are turning down the opportunity to play more football.
Nope.
I don't understand
for hardware.
I don't understand how you're turning down the opportunity to have 15 additional practices or whatever it is. So take a team like Notre Dame. You're telling me that CJ Carr couldn't benefit from? Again, he's a very good quarterback, but you're going to tell me he wouldn't benefit from 15 additional practices and playing against a good, still a good BYU team? Like, I just that doesn't make sense to me. If you're a team like Rutgers, how in the world do you not want to go play more football? You're telling me that you couldn't use a little extra practice there? I don't get that.
And here's my thing, because I would agree, but still somewhat disagree with what you said.
And also, and then you can go, but like also like just from I get the games don't matter. I understand, we'll get to Michigan drawing Texas in the Citrus Bowl. I get that the Citrus Bowl doesn't really matter. But why would you not go play that? And why would you deprive your student athletes of the experience of going to go, play a bowl game? I know Bahamas Bowl is, defunct now, but hey, but just that bowl game experience. Why would you take that away? I don't get that.
Yeah.
I don't get that.
I agree, but I would say that the games still do matter. They should, at least. If you're a competitor of any kind, any level, they should absolutely matter. I don't think just the way college football is nowadays, you wouldn't see a CJ Carr. You're not going to probably see Manning. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
It honestly would not surprise me if you didn't see Underwood.
We'll get to that.
And I understand it from that perspective, because if you're one of these head coaches trying to run this program, you've got this young talent that's a starter that has all this potential. The game doesn't really mean anything, but so you don't want to risk an injury that could keep them out to the start of the next year. I totally get that side of things. But to me, what bowl games have become is basically a glorified spring game with a chance for you to get some hardware after. So it still matters in the sense of there's still something to play for. There's still a little bit of pride in it. And to me, it's a great example and a great setting for you to get some of those young guys in that didn't see the field much, to get meaningful minutes against really good opponents in a game with some competitiveness to actually matter. You can have guys like, if you're Ohio State, let's say Ohio State was in this situation and they were getting ready to go into a bowl game. They lost 3 games or 4 games or whatever, and we're playing in a random bowl game. You're probably not going to see Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate or any of those guys, but give me guys like Quincy Porter, give me Mylan Graham, give me Isaiah West, give me some of these guys that need some of these reps that we didn't get a chance to get in the regular season, to be able to go in and get that experience, to me, is just insane. And Rutgers is another one that I was disgusted by, because they were playing like Georgia Southern, which was a very winnable game. Yeah. And I wouldn't have expected to see Callie Ekmanis or KJ Duff or any of these guys. But to be able to go out there with a program that you were 5-7 this year. Yeah. And you're going to go and deny the chance to go and get better. Yeah. Notre Dame, I understood them trying to send a message. It was the softest thing I've ever seen in my life. Yeah. But I don't want to even hear Lou Holtz talk about a soft team ever. I wonder where he is right now. Who cares? Just the softness from these programs nowadays is astounding. Get your young guys in there. Get them the experience. Let the fans that spend their money to go and watch you play, give them one last game for the season to watch what they have coming up the next year. We know that you saw at Ohio State versus Missouri a couple of years ago when McCord and Harrison and all them sat out. It's not going to be the same team you saw in the regular season, but it's something that you can then look forward and go, oh, that guy's going to be great next year.
Someone had remarked, I don't even know if I can say this. This is still from a ministry. I'm going to say it anyway, and then I'll ask forgiveness later.
We'll bleep it out.
Someone had said, and I don't remember who it was, but they had said, how in the world could Notre Dame opt out of the Pop-Tart Bowl? It's literally like the death of a beloved figure rising back to life to nourish us. And that's all I'm going to say about that, because I don't think I'm allowed to say more than that. I thought it was pretty funny, though. The Rivalry Podcast is part of the Varsity Network from Learfield and the River Podcast Network from River Radio Ministries.
New episodes out every Monday.
Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening right now, and follow on social media at RivalPod and RivalPod.com.
And if you like what you hear, share with a friend so they can listen too.